A burst pipe? A dead water heater? The AC calling it quits? Who do you call? HomeServe is an easy way to handle unexpected home repairs with plans covering stuff basic homeowners insurance usually won't. Instead of scrambling for a contractor, you make one call to get the repair process started. Join the millions of customers who trust HomeServe right now. Go to homeserve.com/podcast for 50% less your first year. That's homeserve.com/podcast. Savings compared to renewal price. Void in Florida.
Welcome to the What Happens Next YouTube channel. What we're aiming to do with this channel is share content designed to make sure that you're supported through whatever's next in your life. And we'd love to continue to do that. I've got a favour to ask today, and what I'd ask you to do is just subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it really helps us deliver really good quality content on a consistent basis. Thank you, and let's go on to the interview. Welcome to What Happens Next, the YouTube channel dedicated to having interesting, nuanced conversations about change, particularly in our 50s, 60s and beyond. My name's Chris, I'm your host, and if you've been watching for a while now, which many of you have, you probably know that. One thing I promised my team that I'd mention is we've got the What Happens Next book coming out on the 28th of May. I'm recording this on the 13th of May, and I'm really excited. Now, there's two things that you can do. There's a couple of tickets left for the launch, and we'll put a link in the comments below if you'd like to come. That's going to be in London. If geographically you can't get there, but you'd love to read the book, a lot of you have told me that you want to do that. There will be a link below with an Amazon link that you can click. And if it's before the 28th, pre-order today. And if it's after, you can get that book immediately. As you know, if you watch a lot of our videos, I love having interesting, nuanced conversations about the change we go through in our lives. And I can't think of a better guest to do that with than Nicola. Nicola, how are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for that very lovely introductory.
Absolute pleasure. I mean every single word. I know a lot about you, but for the purposes of our audience, tell us a little bit about you.
So my name is Nicola Vortes, and my company is called The Leadership Mentor, and I mentor in leadership. And the way that I do that is focusing not on models, not on systems, but really supporting the inner leader in each and every one of us to really come to the service. So people, if they're in a leadership position or in a position of authority, they can lead in the most authentic way possible. So I've been doing this now for around 20 years. And yeah, there's not an industry or a person. I don't think I've worked with anybody in farming, but I think I kind of could say I've really probably worked with every business sector in that time, and feel very privileged to have done so and supported lots of great people that are doing great things.
I think leadership is a really fascinating subject because we think about leadership, we think about it in business or industry.
Yeah.
But actually, like, I think about my wife, and now she's an amazing leader in our family. And
Yes.
but how do you define leadership?
So the way I look at it is how we operate as an individual in our day-to-day lives and how we show up and represent ourselves. And it really doesn't matter whether that's on the street, at work, or at home. It's how we are representing who we are and what we're here for and what we're here to achieve.
Yeah. What does good leadership look like, in your opinion?
Somebody that's kind of really comfortable with who they are and what they're about, and really sitting in that power and saying, this is me, this is what I'm about, this is what I'm here to do, and kind of really being rooted in that and not allowing external influences to kind of push them off course or to knock them off from their direction, which inevitably in life, we all have opportunities where things come in and test us. And for me, it's around supporting my clients, because whether you're in business or in home life, something inevitably comes along, a challenge comes along that you don't plan for, you don't foresee, and that really then challenges us and the course that we're on. And so for me, self-leadership really is around that internal mechanism to enable you to better weather the inevitability of storms in businesses or at home. So it's that kind of like inner support that you are able to show up for yourself.
Resilience. Or is that something different?
Yes. So resilience is part of it, but also really what's greater than that is our emotional intelligence to read the room.
Yeah.
Our, emotional calibration of how we're able to hold ourselves in conflict situations or situations whereby we are out of control. And so for me, that is the bit that I kind of what I call reparent in my clients, because we automatically, when we're not in control, go into a defense mechanism of sorts, whether that is getting angry, whether that is avoiding, whether that is hiding, we go into these behaviors. And so for me, it's around supporting people to really be comfortable with resistance, number one, and then being able to pivot themselves accordingly based on what's coming in.
Yeah, I love that. I'm reading a really interesting book at the minute by a guy called Nur El, and it's about beliefs. And I often think about, because you said about these, like you chart path and then you go through it, and you've got to be resilient to these that side of influences. This book's really changed my perspective on that, because what it's made me question is the stories I tell myself about the world and whether they serve me or don't serve me. Do you think you need to be open to certain ideas? And I really like the word metacognition, thinking about how we think. And how do we work out what beliefs are actually serving us being a leader and what might not be?
Yeah, I mean, we have kind of core beliefs, and first of all, it's I would say, kind of look at where you got them from, because we take on a lot of beliefs in childhood based on our parenting, based on our environments, and then we go through life thinking that these beliefs are a true reflection of ourselves, only to come into challenge with them. But we've got so much experience of holding that belief or standing up in that belief to kind of like let go of it is kind of feels like, I don't know about that. So when we go through life, we kind of see that maybe some of these beliefs are limiting us in some way, or they're causing situations that are not favorable for us to move forward. So it's really around identifying where those beliefs come from. Do they still serve you? Because sometimes, we take on a belief for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, and it's okay to let go of some of those beliefs. And it's not it's not abandoning. It's just saying that this belief is no longer working for me in the current environment. Yeah,
because they all serve us, don't they? But like they might protect us at one stage of our lives, but when we move into another, it might be
exactly.
It's interesting, really, really interesting.
And this is where people often come into conflict, which prevents them then from moving forward. And similar to your audience of what happens next, it's like they know that they need to prepare for ending a career, maybe going into retirement, maybe changing their life fundamentally, moving abroad, the kids have left home. And so they have this belief of, well, this was my role and this is my identity and this is what I've always done. And then all of a sudden recognizing, well, actually something needs to change. And so therefore you have this, what I call inner conflict with, we're so identified with our beliefs of who we are and the roles that we've played. And this is how I get my needs met. Kind of letting go of that is almost like alien, because it's like, well, I don't know who I am without that.
Well, I mean, who am I if I'm not that is a conversation I have all of the time.
Yes.
But the other interesting
absolutely.
one, if I drill down to my role as a financial planner in people's lives, and we know that the change into what happens next is more complicated and nuanced with that. This is why the channel exists. But I'm having some really interesting conversations with my clients at the minute. 2 I've had this week, who with clients who are amazing savers and investors, have reached a point of financial independence in their lives over and above what they're ever going to need financially. And now I'm having conversations with them about saying, how do we use this pot of money as a tool for you to live the life you want? And the challenge for them is the habits that have got them to that point, saving and investing, they need to now rethink, because they need to spend some of that money to do what they want with their lives. And I think we underestimate how difficult that transition and change can be, right?
Because it's not about rethinking, right? Because and that's the thing. It's around connecting to those parts of them that can enjoy life again. That can let go of the role that they've been so identified with, probably born into, educated into, told that the only way you can survive is to be this, is to achieve. And then all of a sudden, so much focus and energy has gone into that. They have not built up the muscle or resource of, well, what about me? More often than not, people who are successful abandon certain parts of their life in order to fulfill that role. And so therefore, they then have to go and kind of what I call pick up the pieces of themselves that they kind of left behind in order to fulfill that role. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on. No, carry
on. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, because there's a really interesting sort of thread of thought that I want to explore. One belief that I think serves me really well is I look rubbish in a pair of wellies, which is one of the reasons that I never work with farmers, because I'm not built for farming. I'm built for just having interesting conversations with people. One thing I am curious about is that element of change you went through, because I know you had a bucket load of corporate experience, and you went from that to running the business you're running now. Help me understand that journey and what you learned about managing change from that.
So I think for me, starting my career in corporate, and especially with a good company such as PepsiCo, they really did invest in their people, and they really did have it together. They were a good corporate to work for. And I have a lot to thank them for, because being an American company, they invested a lot of money in leadership training, in coaching, in investment. They really did see this as something really, really important. So, a shout out to the people of PepsiCo, because if it wasn't for that investment they put in me through my position at the time, I probably wouldn't have been awakened into how much this actually better suited me. So it was really through the work that I did at PepsiCo of managing large teams, delivering projects, that I began to realize that actually, the resources and bringing people together, and actually it wasn't around necessarily the product, it was around working with people in order to achieve the goal. And that's the bit that I really enjoyed the most.
Side, right?
It's the people side. And I always have enjoyed that. I am a people person. I love people. They fascinate the hell out of me. I'm always into how can things get better? How can we expand and evolve? And that's how my kind of career transitioned. And I think one of the biggest things I have learned, and I prepare my clients for when they are considering maybe setting up their own business, is don't underestimate the money that you need. And the resources that you need around you. And the first piece of work that I do with people is, who is your inner circle? Because you're going to need that inner circle when you step out into the rough seas of independent business, and they are rough seas. Yeah. And sometimes they might be calm. Sometimes they might be a little choppy, and sometimes there'll be a tsunami. Okay. And you are going to need that inner circle of people who, you know, have got your back to enable to support you through these changes, to support your business and you through this.
You're right.
So it's really around money, having enough money to put into all of the departments that a corporate had sitting there at your fingertips. You had money at your fingertips, you had sales, you had marketing, you had accounts, and you had people to escalate. When you set up your own business, you need to have that same model in place. Okay, maybe not in permanent employees, but in experts in field that you can go to that will support your business in each of these areas. Yeah. And a lot of people don't think that they need that. They think that their specialism, their ideas, how great they are, and that is all true, but it's only part true, because to really evolve in your business to sustain, you do need inner circle people that are performing those roles.
I also think, my experience, I don't know if you agree with it, but my experience is that you underestimate when you're working for a big organisation how much just gets done for you. So it's like the marketing, the sales. It's like sorting the printer out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then like 15 years ago, I'm starting my business, and I'm just like, there's a paper jam, and I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like all of those little things.
Yes.
I mean, and it's interesting because we've gone on a bit of a journey. My computer in the office going through some issues. Now I've just phone somebody to sort it out, and that's like an outsourced thing that we do. So I've now got to the point where I don't need to worry about it anymore. But when you first start,
this is it.
You underestimate how much there is to learn, to know, and to do. It's not just a practitioner. It's how do you promote, how do you sell, how do you add value, all of that.
And even if you can't answer those questions yourself, because generally you're not an expert in that field, and I think identifying as a business owner that you're not an expert in those fields, that basically you're probably going to get in your own way if you try and do the sales yourself, if you try and do the marketing yourself, the accounts yourself, fixing the paper jams yourself. So really you need to identify what are the kind of the key roles that I need to enable my business to flourish, and getting people in those positions to be able to be experts in field to support you.
I love the fact that and it's really interesting when I think about the amount of people who I'm on their team for their Watson's Next journey. Who do you think, if you're not starting a business, but you're thinking about the next chapter of your life, who do you think people should consider having on their team?
I would, if it's a major change in their life, I feel getting some form of support to enable you to work on this subject is a very good first step. And of course, I'm going to say that because that's what I do as a business. But I really think because quite often we can waste a lot of time and a lot of resource and end up not achieving what we set out to do. So working with a coach or a mentor to enable you to identify what is that next thing? What is it? Answering that question, what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
And really begin to kind of answer those questions. And even if you don't have a coach or a mentor, writing down on a flipped up piece of paper, on a piece of paper, and sticking it up saying, what am I going to do next? What is my next? And probably more often than not, the first thing that comes in, I don't know. That's the first thing the ego says. I don't know, because if I did know, I'd be doing it. And just keep asking yourself a repeater question, because repeater questions begin to cut down the barriers of the ego. The ego is there as a protector that says, I don't know, carry on doing what you're doing. I don't know, that's not going to be any good. You're no good at that. What would you waste your time and money on that for? It
But that goes back to that beliefs question, doesn't it? That goes back to that question of what do we believe, and does it served us in this bit? Does it serve us in the next chapter? Yeah, it's such fascinating on that one.
And it's, as well as a belief bit, it is also around our ability to let go of control.
Yeah.
And that is ultimately what we are doing. We are letting go of control in this area of our life into an area that is unknown, uncharted.
Yeah, I've written a chapter of the book. I am going to stop shamelessly promoting the book in a little while, but because I'm so close to it at the minute, I'll carry on for a little while. I've written a chapter on the book about really good people in your inner circle you should be talking about when you're thinking about what happens next. And here's the ones, if I remember all of them, I hope I do. Here's the ones that I talked about. Number one, and the one we see quite a lot, but it's so interesting when you don't. We're on a mission with What Happens Next to help as many people as we can navigate the next chapter of their life. So I need a favour. I'd like you to visit our YouTube channel at What Happens Next Life, and we'll make sure we put a link to the YouTube channel in the comments. Enjoy the videos, like the ones that you get benefit from, but most importantly, please subscribe. We want to help as many people as we can with What Happens Next, and subscribing to our YouTube channel for free is the easiest way you can help us. Is your life partner, right?
Yeah.
So that element of like, I'm giving up the career, I'm going to do some consulting, I'm going to do some non-executive director, I'm doing something else that's going to mean my time changes. I think often people think that's an individual decision and don't think about how it's going to reflect their families. So actually having a conversation with the person you share your life with, or the people you share your life with, I think is a fundamental one. Because I had a client, Nicola, I had this conversation with, who said to me, he was 3 years into his next chapter, and he said, Chris, I thought I had it all sorted. I thought I was going to financially independent, the money wasn't thick. I thought I was just going to spend more time at home with my wife, and that would really work. And actually, his wife had other plans. and not having that conversation with because balance is the key there. What works for you? So I think number one is partner. Number two, and I would say this, wouldn't I, is financial planner. Number three is coach. I think having a mirror independent of your family to guide you through these choices you need to make is going to be really important. Number four is professional team. So a lot of my clients run businesses. So part of that transition to whatever happens next is going to be, how do you just do the technical stuff? How do you sell the business? How do you transition on? How do you do that? And for the life of me, I can't remember number five, but it will be in the book. So I'll mention it. But those four are vital. However, you could argue that change doesn't start with anybody externally. It starts with you. And I know you talk a lot about change starting from the inside too.
Yes.
Talk to me about what that actually practically means, and how do people take the first incremental step towards it?
So all of the things that you've identified now are external things. Okay. So they are people that are advising that person, things need to change. You need to think about these things. Okay. So whilst that information's going in, fundamentally, that person that is going through, who is in control of this change, has to, first of all, accept that it needs to happen. And unless we come to, as individuals, acceptance, not resistance, that we need to make some changes, it doesn't matter what inner circle team you have.
That's right.
they're not going to move. That ego, that resistance is holding on because it's so identified with the role, the persona, the buzz, the kick, the purpose that this person was getting from that. And letting go of it is like, it's like letting go of a child, really, especially when you talk about business. I mean, a business owner, if it's their business and they've birthed that business, you saying now's the time to kind of give that up and hand it over to another set of people who are really great and they're going to look after your business and your people and that is not going to be done through a team of people. That needs to fundamentally come when that person makes a change in the inside that says, yes, this is the right thing for me.
What's the typical drivers in your experience of that change?
Sorry, say that again, sir. I didn't hear you so well.
What are the drivers? What's what are the things that make people think that they might want to make that change?
It keeps repeating. So if it keeps coming in what I call your energy field via ill health, via mistakes happening, via you're not keeping up and you're not keeping up, or you're dropping some balls, we get the messages before the criticality point that happens. But what we do is we ignore it. We think we can rise above it. We think we can pivot. We think it's a blip. And the early warning signs are always there, but we tend to, as human beings, ignore those early warning signs and only tend to make changes when it comes into a bit more of a critical need to happen. You
know what's interesting? I've just had a financial planning friend of mine who's a bit older than me. So he's in his early 60s, who's just sold his business. And lovely guy. But his trigger was his brother. So his brother passed away at 58. And it really shifted his perspective on the wealth.
Yes.
I think sometimes it can be external, but it can't be somebody telling you. As you said, that element of somebody turning around and going, you really must, you really should, never works, right? But if you get a thing that makes you think about life differently, it happens to you, that can be a trigger. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. 1 million or ill health. I mean, more often than not, or addiction. I mean, this is what I see, or a breakdown in the relationship at home. I mean, tends to what happens to business owners. The wheels come off in another area of life that they have been ignoring through being so identified with this business, with this identity of who they are within their business, with this role that they've played. And so life tends to happen and some wheels begin to kind of derail things. And so their attention is being asked to be shifted off this one thing that was everything into some other areas. And like you said, it can be a death. It can be a breakdown in a relationship. It can be the children leaving. It can be a health scare.
Yeah.
It can be the coping mechanism that is getting unhealthy.
Yeah.
That kind of triggers somebody to kind of think, I need to change.
Yeah, get that. And I know you do a lot of work with clients who are going through transitions in all sorts of ways in their lives. What do we get right about making positive change in their lives, and what are the mistakes that we make?
When I work with clients, I really don't focus on the mistakes because we hold on to these mistakes and we bash ourselves with them. Yeah. We are going to continue to make so many mistakes in our lives, and that is absolutely guaranteed. So really the education is get over it. You're going to make loads of mistakes. You're going to fall over. You're going to scrape your knees. You're going to hurt. You're going to bleed. But the change is really about getting up, recognizing, hold on, what part did I play in this situation and what can I do to change so I can try and prevent that from happening again in my life? Because sometimes we need to learn lessons 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, or in my case, 50 times before we actually take different action. Yeah.
I'm definitely not going to ask you what lesson you've needed to learn 50 times. Although now I'm really curious. But I think you're right. I mean, it took me years to get to a point where my philosophy is win or learn. So actually, and again, this might just be a story I'm telling myself, but the reality is, for me, loss or failure is just an opportunity to think about how I might want to do things differently.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you don't, making mistakes is a natural part of human life, isn't it? We all do.
But we get I'm sorry.
I
was just going to say we get so.
Sorry, you talk.
I was just going to say we just get so identified with focusing on them, though.
Yeah.
And not letting it go and not forgiving ourselves. And
what's the best way to frame mistakes if we are obsessing with them?
Let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. You have to let it go because you can't move on until you let it go.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is recognize that we can't let it go until we've understood the lesson sometimes. And so we can't, and this is where the ego won't let us let it go until such time as we understand the truth of our part in the situation.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding, what did I do here? What was my part in it? And what you'll find is the letting go then gets easier.
Yeah.
But when we try and hold on tighter and try and hold on to control and try and hold on to we're right, that's wrong, we remain stuck in the scenario and letting go becomes more challenging.
I think the interesting thing about that is getting the balance right between really focusing on learning the lessons, but also avoiding rumination, because just going through that loop of I'm thinking about it a lot, but I'm not learning anything from it is something that I know I can get rid of. How do we get that balance right between taking the time to learn the lesson, but not ruminating?
It's around changing the focus. It is, and sometimes that takes time to rewire the brain's pattern to focus on the negative in the past rather than on the lesson, the truth, the letting go and moving forward. And when you're not kind of coached or mentored with that, the ego really can have a tight grip of us and take us back into our old patterning. And so, like you said, having that mirror that kind of says, here we are again with the same pattern of behavior in the same circumstance, we kind of let go of it gradually and gently of that pattern. And we start then focusing on, okay, I've let it go. I've learned the lessons. It doesn't need to hold me so tightly anymore, and I can move on.
Love that. Now, self-leadership is a phrase that you hear everywhere. I'm always a bit curious about what it actually means. What do you think it means to you? And why does it matter when we're thinking about the next chapter of our lives so much?
Okay. Self-leadership is really about living your autonomy, your truth of why you're here.
Yeah.
And in our first part of our life can be, not in all circumstances, led by our parents' beliefs, our parents' judgments, and our parents' wish for us. And then that is reinforced by our educational environments. And therefore, the kudos we get when we say that we are this in business, that in business, we're an accountant, we're a lawyer, we're a doctor. We think it identifies us as this some great person. But then we realize that actually that maybe is not us. That's not who we are. Maybe we're not those parts that we have focused so hard to become in our lives. And so therefore it's around pivoting from that to find what I call is our own kind of truth.
Yeah.
Our own kind of inner leader that leads us to the place of who we were born to become.
Love that. Sorry.
And the reason why it becomes more prominent in later years is because we've got so many examples of where it's not making us happy, where it's not leading us to where we want to go. And so we have to almost like wake up to it a bit more, because it's a nagging voice that just doesn't kind of go away. You know, our truth, our inner leader comes out more and more and more as it gets louder and louder and louder.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So for me, this is what self-leadership is around. It's around leading your life with autonomy of who you were born to become, who you were born to evolve into.
Love that. And I think the interesting thing about that for me is that imposed definition of success, like success means just more money, or success means being a respected professional, and there's nothing wrong with all of those things. But I think what I see quite a lot of is people, certainly clients of mine, I'm having conversations with them about, well, let's ignore that, but what does success mean to you? What does a life well lived mean to you? And how is that different to the way that we're told we should live? And the interesting thing about this next chapter is we're, for 150 years, for all of the industrial age and a decent chunk of the modern age, we've been told that you've worked hard, you've learned, you've gone to school, you've learned, you've earned, and now you should stop. And actually, what I try and empower my clients with is that might be right. That might be the right choice for you. However, you've got so many alternative options in the next chapter of your life. And how do we explore what it really means for you to have a life well lived? And when you're thinking about that and when you're working with clients, what are the parts that they should be talking about when they're thinking about a life well lived?
So for me, it starts right now. Like it's around to stop abandoning yourself for that thing. So when we listen to what it is that we need and we want, and we put that forward and take action towards that, that gives us a feeling of autonomy that is greater than anything you will experience.
It's that control of your own destiny, isn't it?
I mean, this is the liquid gold, really it is. When you don't abandon yourself for that thing, to chase that dream, to chase that money, to chase that job. Because at the end of the day, when all of that is pushed to the sides and you are just sitting with yourself, proud of who you are, in connection with all aspects of yourself, and knowing that you've not sold out for anything, that you sit there just based on who you are, for me is the gold.
I suppose the challenge often is people don't always know what they want, and that stops them from moving in that direction. So how do we work that out?
So when people say they don't know what they want, that's not true. That's the first lie. Because you do know what you want, you've just forgotten how to ask for it. Okay. And you've not put time into building that up so you do know what it is. So it's around, stop using that as an excuse and start asking yourself a different question that says, if I were to know, what would is it that I would like to do? It starts with a like. You know, it starts with looking outside and thinking, okay, I kind of might like that. And I might like this. And then it's like drilling down into making that something a bit more tangible that you can then have it, so you can begin to build on that. And so it's really to stop kind of lying to yourself, because that's an ego lie.
Yeah. But
I don't know. It's a defense, you know, and it's like, let's move the defense out of the, you know, what it is that you want. And literally in working with someone for 3 minutes, they're spieling it off.
Yeah.
You keep pressing the question. You keep pressing the question, and similar, you know, you will do this in your role too. You keep, presenting the question, creating the safety, creating the relaxation, creating the expanded thought. And then I tell you, you will come up with the answer.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just taking it from a slightly different angle. Like, it's empowering somebody's thought. So the question I really like is, I get you're saying you don't know, but if you did know, what would the answer be?
Yeah.
And just nudging people in that direction. I really like that question in terms of where we are now. One of the things that I absolutely loved, because it aligns with my view of the world, is you never stop learning. And I'm a big reader. I love to read. I'm just always got a book on the go. I love to read. I spoke about the one that I'm really enjoying from the EO on Beliefs at the minute. And I loved your reading guide on your website. I thought it had some real interesting books on there. If you had to pick 1, 2, or 3 books for somebody to read when they're thinking about the transition in their 50s and 60s, what should they read and why?
So first of all, they have to ask the question is, what are they looking for? So if they're looking for a practical guide that is going to help them through the different processes and procedures to enable to answer these questions, of course they're going to pick your new book, What Happens Next, because it's in there, isn't it? Of course, and that's not on my reading. I'm reading
now promote it. Do you know what I mean? That's brilliant. So thank you for your kind promotion on What Happens Next. But what I'm really curious about is, apart from reading the book that I've written, what other books would you recommend people to start with if they're thinking about the next chapter of their lives?
So the books I recommend are not so geared on what happens next, those practical steps. For me, everything I read and everything I do is understanding why I am perhaps still attaching to, dependent upon. And so 2 big books I recommend for understanding yourself a little bit more is Codependent No More.
Okay.
And Attached by Amir Levine. And what these 2 books help you understand is, as human beings, how we attach to different things, attach to people, attach to circumstances. And we can also there become dependent, which is what the one Codependent No More works on, is our dependency on external things. And what this will do is kind of give you an awareness of yourself and your behavior and some of your patterns of behavior that lead you into not letting go, not being able to make decisions, putting people, circumstances in front of the reasons why you can't change. When it comes to change, the patterns that you go into, whether that is to avoid, whether that is to go down a rabbit hole, whether that is to nervously attach to something else or something new. Both of these books would give you a good kind of what I call 360 in understanding some human behaviors.
And I think you need to start with why, right? I think the book that I've written is practical in nature, but the thinking starts before that. The thinking starts.
Yes.
What with those 2 specific books in mind, what did you learn, both from a personal perspective, but also that empowered the work that you do?
As a collective, personally, what I recognized sometimes is I would often abandon my own needs in pursuit of this external thing, or for that relationship, or for that business, or for the greater good. And therefore recognize then that I wasn't pumping the muscle of these other resources that I needed to support me. And I think you speak to most business owners, they've got that going on in a varying degree in some way. If you are kind of entrepreneurial, you're here to bring change. You are the forefront of your family. You are the person in your family that resolves everything and takes the lead and sorts everything out. If you are that type of patterning of person, there is sometimes a tendency to put the other and the situation before what it is that you need. And I feel what these books do is help you recognize the situations that you may have got yourself in that have led to this, and that lead to it then sometimes being hard to make decisions for yourself.
I'd be fascinated though, because I really like one of my favourite books is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, and one of the things that I know I learned a lot from 7 Habits is that Stephen Covey talks about this fact that we believe that we should all be independent, when actually the reality is no man or woman is an island, right? We're all
absolutely
interdependent. What, in your opinion, is the difference between codependency but appreciating and understanding that we live in these, like what makes life great for me is living in communities with that, and frustrating at times, but living in communities with other people. So what's the difference in your head between that codependence and that interdependence?
So in codependence, there is a level of control whereby you are trying to control the other person or coerce the other person into doing something, or ignoring their own independent experience, or bypassing their needs for your own benefit. And when you're in what I call a codependent relationship, this goes on a lot, whereby the independence gets blurred. You know, it's generally because people don't know how to be healthily independent, and that tends to track back from childhood. So with regards to independence, yes, we need to have independence, but then also as well, we need to, like you said, not be an island, and we do need people, we do need community. So it's really around bridging your own independence, your own autonomy, and bringing others with you. And the others you bring with you are not trying to control, are not trying to put their version of things on. This is the only way. You can have what I call an independent relationship, where together you can build forward. And this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients, to help them build resources around them that are healthy, independent individuals that are moving forward to achieve a same goal. And they've not got what I call unhealthiness in the organization, whereby you've got someone not quite able to bring things to the table, and therefore sabotaging, creating drama, creating chaos, creating diversion that prevents the whole team from getting to where it is that they need to go.
Love that. If somebody's listening or watching this today and they've got a nagging sense that they probably want to make some positive change in their lives, but they're stuck, what's the one tiny incremental action they can take, or the one question they might want to ask themselves to take a tiny step forward?
So if they've already got this nagging thing that something needs to change, they've already identified something needs to change. And because if it keeps coming up, the truth is already there. They're just ignoring it or avoiding it or squashing it down or suppressing it. So it's really around getting it out of the cupboard, really, and saying, right, something needs to change. And then the next question is what do I have the capability of changing now? Forget what it needs to look like. Forget what it needs to replace. Forget where I'm going. What one thing can I do now to identify what that change is? And if they don't, well, I don't even know what area of life I need to make this change. It's look at your relationships. Look at the roles that you're playing at work. Look at your friendship groups. Look at where is causing you a lot of distraction and discomfort. And the indicators are there already. You just have to start listening to yourself. And this is all I do with people. People say, oh, Nicola, you know everything. You're so wonderful. Da, da, da. And I'm like, I'm only listening to what you're telling me. And I'm just playing it back. I'm not coming up with anything new. I'm hearing your truth. I'm mirroring you, and I'm responding, and I'm saying, you're right, go for it. You're right, take that action. I believe in you, and I'm that kind of support that kind of says, yeah. Go for it. Do it. I mean, you already know.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I've got a friend of mine that I'm helping out at the minute. Not in any sort of commercial aspect, but he said something really interesting to me yesterday about what I need is a little bit of courage. And it was so interesting. So I said, look, I'll introduce you to some people that might give you a usual perspective on what you're aiming to achieve. And I spoke to him just for this call, Nicola, and said, look, I've done as promised. I've made the introductions. I want to help you out. I want to guide you along in this journey. And he said to me, are the introductions you've made okay about me talking about this business idea when it potentially might compete with what they're up to? And I said to him, look, if I wouldn't have made the introductions if I didn't think they were going to be helpful, useful, and good people. I've got, as you know, I've got a bunch of inner circles, but I've got a bit of a rule around my inner circles that, you know, you've got to be giving and generous and loving to be part of my community. But I don't think he was asking that question really. I think when I think about it, he was asking something about the fact that he just needs a bit of moral support. Do you know, he's got all the ideas, he's got all the. Sometimes we just need to be the cheerleaders and people we love and like in our lives, don't we? What do you think?
But when I just heard what you said then, what he's asking for is permission. And it's really, this is what he's asking for, you know, permission to step into this, permission to say, guys, and if he's saying, he's asking that question, ask that question. When you're sitting with these people, and if you've got this fear or this uncertainty, put it in the room and says, guys, we're in competition here. There is a similarity in what we're doing. Is it okay for me to bring this stuff to the table? And can we talk openly about it?
Yeah.
What's the worst thing they can say? No. Yeah. Okay, you're not the right circle for me. Get the fear out. Ask it, put it on the table. Because the longer we leave it in the cupboard, it grows.
Yeah, don't leave it in the cupboard.
And it really grows.
Sunshine is a great disinfectant, isn't it? Yes. I love that. What story best describes the work you do?
I don't speak about my clients' stories because I really value everything that they tell me, and I sit in a position of no judgment. Yeah. I hear what they say, I accept where they are with it, and I support them to take themselves to the next place. So I know sometimes when people do podcasts, they give really good examples, and you're able to give examples of people, but what people come to me with is some of their biggest fears. They may have a persona outside and an image outside that they need to protect, and people look at them.
Confidentiality is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, there are so many success stories I could speak to you about today of the ways that I have supported people and helped them, but then I feel I would be breaking their confidence in saying this. However, I suppose if I was to summarize in one sentence, what I do is I support people to get to where they need to go, even if that road is not clear. So if it is that you are struggling with your business, with a chapter in your life, or something has suddenly come in that you didn't plan, I support you to stability, really, whereby you can actually say, do you know what, I can hold myself again now. I don't need to have anybody kind of holding that space for me. I know what I want. I know where I'm going. And sometimes that's enough for people. Sometimes people want to continue the journey. So it doesn't need to be any big long-term commitment. It can just be for a period, a season, or a lifetime. It really depends on what that person kind of needs. So
I love that.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. Where can people find out a little bit more about you?
I have a website, The Leadership Mentor, and I have LinkedIn, Nicola Vortez, The Leadership Mentor.
Amazing. Nicola, I've loved today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me, talking about so many diverse subjects. I hope if you're watching, you've got a lot out of our conversation too. And we'll see you next time on What Happens Next. Have a lovely day. Part of the issue we've got when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives is having the self-awareness, having the introspection to be able to think about what the gaps in our well-being are. And we're doing loads of work at the minute with What Happens Next to build solutions that are going to help you think about well-being in a nuanced way when you're thinking about how it applies to your life. One of the first things we've built that you can use today is our What Happens Next quiz. It's free to do, takes about 5 minutes, but what it will do is give you an insight into the areas of strengths when it comes to your well-being and the areas you might want to improve. You can take the What Happens Next quiz at whathappensnext.life/quiz, and I hope it helps you in your journey to work out what happens next for you.